Introduction, Nature and Purpose.
So in the nature of the text, you would know what are you reading, and when knowing about what you are reading, you are better prepared to follow the references, anticipate the arguments, and understand the discussion. So um, you may generate also question regarding the article itself. For example, what is the title, and what kind of information that you could anticipate in the discussion. So in this article, which is entitled "Is Love at the First Sight Possible?" by Aaron Ben Zeef, debunk the idea or the possibilities being in love with the person you saw for the first time. And the article is published on November 17 in the year of 2013. And this article intrigues curiosity in readers regarding this type of love. Questions like, am I physically attracted to them, or am I willing to accept that I can't see their flaws yet, may pops on your mind when thinking about this kind of love. And nonetheless, the concept of love at a first sight is embedded in us as it has been portrayed in the pop culture, especially as the staple romance trope, in movies or TV series out there. And hence it is safe to say that, background reading may not be needed, as the concept is pretty familiar to us. The purpose of this article is to persuade the readers, to convince them that the opinion or the claim of the writer is correct or valid regarding the issue of love at the first sight. And as it is a persuasive article, it is structured into three parts, which includes the introduction, the arguments, and the conclusion. So in the introduction, um, the author started off with providing hook to let readers get into the article, and the hook that he has given is uh, actually the examples, real life examples on love at a first sight. And he includes two situations or experience shared by others on love at a first sight. And the first one is by Carla Bruni, which is who is an Italian French singer-songwriter. On she shares her relationship with his partner Nicholas regarding how instant their relationship are. The author also provide examples on a woman, nameless woman, who at the very first time in her life she passionately felt was when he saw him. And this also shows the example of love at first sight. So by giving real life examples regarding love at first sight, the author in a way kind of trying to convince that this kind of love does exist in real life. And it happens more common as there are people out there who experience this kind of love. Apart from that, the author also include arguments regarding love at the first sight, as well as his stance regarding this particular article or issue, in which will be presented later. Next is the target audience. So when talking about target audience, it is the crowd or the group of people that the texts are intended to appeal to them. And in this kind of context, in this article, the author target the society as the whole, in which it is shown through by the author, in which he didn't specify the audience in the text. The author never used or stated any specific role or people, for examples like teachers or parents, when writing the text. He wrote it generally without mentioning any group of people or crowd. And in this text, he wrote generally, meaning the writing appeal to educated adults who are not the part of his field, which is psychology. And the first step is by recognizing that he didn't use jargon within his writing, and he didn't wrote in a complex way, meaning he eliminate unnecessary words or making his writing simple, concise, and direct. So here is an example of a passage that is taken from the article, in which you know it consists of simple and easy to understand sentences. For example, love at the first sight is essentially intense love. The great attractiveness strikes you like a flash of lightning, and you wish to prolong the time you spend with the other person. All measures of romantic intensity, such as the heat of feeling, the cognitive of content of what the lover believes about the beloved, the strength of the positive evaluation of the beloved, and the measure and nature of the action readiness are present in this response. This means that the intense love or the emotion that you feel in your heart is what love at the first sight is. You are struck by the other person's remarkable appeal like a bolt of lightning. Shock you, and you want to spend more time with them, and all indicators of romantic intensity, such as the heart of feeling, maybe like the positive appraisal of your beloved or your partner, um what's positive traits in them that you like, and that is will contribute to the intense love that you are feeling. Next is the style and the tone. So, uh, as this is a persuasive text, of course, the style will be a persuasive writing, in which the author try to convince the readers regarding his stance on love at a first sight. Is it possible or not? And in this article, it is clear that the author gives a lot of example and lots of instances that love at first sight occurs in real life. For example, in the introduction earlier on, which the author talk about how there's two instances that he has given, shows that love in real life do occur. So, as stated there, he did include like a statement in which love at first sight may be based upon unreliable information, and does not mean that it is not an instance of intense love. And then he backed up his statement by including an evidence, which is through a research by you know including research indicates and so on in his writing. This is important because in persuasive writing, evidence is important as it builds credibility, and it also gives your writing authority, allowing your readers to evaluate the basis of your arguments, whether they are just based on your opinion or is backed up by extensive research as given there. Apart from that, the author also gives elaboration on love at first sight regarding many perspective. For example, in the terms of whether love at first sight will last long in the future, whether it will, the instant relationship will be eligible for a long run. Yeah. And then the style of the writing is also includes long flowy sentence, and this can be shown through the tone of the writing is formal and academic. Why so? Because longer sentences are likely to be more prevalent in formal writing. You need to be thorough as possible with your approach to each topic when you are using a formal style, and each main points need to be introduced, elaborated, and concluded. And then the article itself is also written in a third person, as in formal writing is not a personal writing style, and the formal writer is disconnected from the topic. They did not use pronouns, or they did not write in the first person point of view, which is using, for example, I or we, and does not use the second person point of view, in which is you. And the article itself is also non-emotional. It does not include a phrase like I think, I feel, or I believe, because the word isn't focused on the writer's own thoughts, but rather his own perspective, written in a formal way. And in this article also, the writers also include facts, in which he includes academic research writing, to let the sources speak for themselves rather than having the writer over explain them. And the author also include full words when writing. He did not use contractions, as it will simplify the words. For example, in the words of it is, rather than using it's. So, in this article, the writer includes 4 main ideas when writing this article. It includes the argument against love at first sight, the romantic intensity and romantic profundity, love at first acquaintance, and is love at first sight a good indicator for the future? In arguments against love at first sight, the writer includes two, like a small arguments, in which he makes comparison between them. And the first argument is about how love at first sight often mislead, since it is based more on imagination than on sight, but it still can be love and is often very intense. So why is that so? Because in love, the high value accorded to the other's external appearance is projected into her internal characteristics. This is what underlies, the attractiveness halo, in which what is beautiful is evaluated as also good. And the second argument is love does not merely consist of feelings, rather, it essentially involves activities, and these cannot be exercised at first sight. And the fact that love may perish after a while also does not imply that it is an intense love. Time is not an exclusive measure of intense love, and romantic intensity is likely subsiding.
So this one is pretty direct. It basically means that you need time in order to build emotions with each other, and this cannot be done throughout love at the first sight, because during that time you only knew that person briefly, in that instant manner, instant meeting. And it is important to know that love need time, to be kept or to be deeper inside of your heart. And it cannot be built, the emotion cannot be built in just one day, in that one brief meeting. You need time, you need to spend time with each other to get to know each other, to know what the other person likes or dislike, in order to build this kind of emotion, love.
Next says, the main points or the arguments of romantic intensity and romantic profundity. So, in romantic profundity, the temporal dimension of love, is added to the emotional intensity of a romance experience. So, in this sense, it involves shared activities that fulfill essential needs that are constitutive of the couple's long-term flourishing. So it can endure for a long time when it maintains romantic intensity, love. But the issue of profoundness is not yet relevant. Right, this is by Andrew Kim. So love can be the basis for profound long-term love if the individual's characteristics revealed in their daily life, in their verbal communication, letter, enhance or do not contradict those seen at the first glance, meaning the characteristics that they first know about each other is the same even in the long run, like it does not change too much.
This is when you know that, you know your characteristics that you first assume about someone or you first saw in someone might not be the same when you get to know them longer after that, because love at a first sight is all about impressions, as stated before. And when it involves first impression, it might changes when you started to get to know that person, because you're assuming what the other person is like in terms of characteristics, for example. And that is when, you know romantic profundity, um, deep love for the other person depends on times, because the changes in characteristics, for example, might happen in the future, and this will, contrast to your expectation of the other person.
The third, main point is that love at first acquaintance. So love at first meeting, increases survival chances of initial love over love at a first sight. First meeting, provides more time to get to know each other characteristics of a person, whether the person is warm, whether the person is witty, or he has, a great sense of humor. And love is linked to the personality halo, in which a person who is perceived as having, a certain positive personality trait is perceived as attractive, which is might contradict the other one, which is love is linked to attractiveness. Hello, while this time it is about love linked to personality. Hello.
Not only that, when you started to get to know the other person, you know, you're meeting, or when you start to spend more time to each other, you might see their other characteristics as stated there: wisdom, wittiness, and sense of humor, in which can be shown through everyday interaction, maybe in conversation, maybe in communication, maybe just by spending time with each other. And this shows that the person, as stated before, the person might not be the same as what you expected, and it could be a pleasant surprise or a bad surprise, depends on the situation.
And lastly, is love at a first sight a good indicator for the future? Love at a first sight is a matter of a heart. This is by Steve Jobs, by the way. And you'll know when you have it. Love may be intense but not profound. The initial positive impression has a positive impact upon the quality of the relationship. First impressions can compensate for the superficial manner of choosing a partner. So what does it mean is that when you're meeting a person for the first time, it may compensate superficial manner, for example, maybe about the looks of the person when choosing them. And this kind of impression may affect you inside, as you feel like there's something inside your heart, something special regarding that person. That is when you know that person is the one.
So this statement basically means that you can, trust your heart when selecting your partner or someone you like, because the emotion is pure. Your emotion does not lie. However, there needs to be things that you need to consider when liking someone, especially in love at a first sight, because the initial positive impression has the positive impacts upon the quality of relationship. And these positive emotion may change or may not in the future, and it is crucial to get to know the other person first, without assuming that their character wouldn't change at all throughout the relationship, because the brevity of time you're spending time with each other will prevent the agent from identifying a significant personality similarity, which is vital for the future. And as I've stated before, uh, knowing the other person is important, because your personality might change in the future. And again, the one you expect might not last forever, and this will affect the relationship, because the personality or the characteristic that you like or you dislike may just stay there, or it keeps changing. And this is vital for keeping a relationship to last, because characteristic of the other person matters.
So next is the sources, in which variety includes three of them. The first one is Love at First Sight, or Friends First, by Gereal in the year of 2007. The second one is Personality and the Structure of Affective Responses by Gilboa and Revelli in 1994. And last but not least, At First Sight, Persistent relationship affects the Get Acquainted Conversations by Suna Frank and Ramizes in the year of 2004. So, as stated there, they are all journal in which articles from a scholarly or academically written journals is more credible than articles from magazines or something else, because they have gone through the most you know rigorous review process, and they also have the most references or citation. And all of the journals stated there are all related to the branch of philosophy in which is the main topic of the journal itself, in which it involves the knowledge of the author, which is Professor Benzif, as he is a kind of philosopher that looks at our deepest emotion. And Professor Benzif can also cater his knowledge and emotions of human by focusing on the philosophy of the psychology, as well as using the points in the journal that he has selected to strengthen his point, to support his claim regarding his stance on is love at the first sight possible.
Because even though it is an intense form of romantic love, it essentially started off by a merely sexual attraction or liking the person's personality due to personality hello, or liking the attractiveness of the person due to attractive hello. And there is always a possibility that this love will not become profound enough to sustain a long-term relationship, because you need time to build a relationship, get to know each other. Consider first impression might be different as time goes by, and you might love the idea of the person or their looks at the first place, which is not really a valid reason to make the relationship last. The probability of this is considered reduced in the case of love at first meeting. Hence, love at the first sight is not possible.